Howdy everybody in YouTube land. Welcome to the next installment of the Zenith Porthole restoration series. So, if you remember, we left on the last part where there was an issue with the horizontal sink. I mean, we still have the audio issue, but we also have the horizontal sink issue. So, I figured I would just go ahead and pick that up in this clip here. So, what I'm going to do now is, here's the original tube, the 6AL5, because I have a suspicion that it's bad. So that's the original 6AL5, and if you remember, we had a chart here that indicates, okay, which tubes are weak. So my 6AL5 is very weak, so I actually recorded that down. But I went ahead, I don't have any of those tubes on hand, surprisingly. So I went ahead and pulled one out of a set that is known working. So let's try that out. If that works good, then we're going to have a really short video. Let's hope it does. If not, then, well, we're going to have to figure it out. So turn that on, and then let's see what we get. Let it warm up. Alright, so vertical is not locked right now yet. It'll probably lock as soon as it warms up, and it did. Oh, there you go. Imagine that. Actually, no, it's still kind of weak. Yeah, it's not really locking. Not really. I mean, it kind of is, but it's almost as if the signal is weak. It's kind of getting it, but it's weak. I bet we've got a drifted resistor. So, no, the 6AL5, just swapping that tube did not fix my problem. So, alright, we are going to have to do some troubleshooting. So let's get this chassis flipped up and get it to a position where we can do that. Alright, so now that I got this chassis flipped up, I've made another observation right here. That resistor I put in there, remember that 3.3 meg ohm that supplies power to the vertical? That's burning up. And remember, it was fed through this pot, which, remember, the pot was open. So we replaced the pot, replaced this 3.3 meg, but it's burning up. And it still gets roasting hot when I turn this thing on. So I took some measurements. There's about 330 volts drop across that resistor. So I did the math, and it's 33 milliwatts. Well under the half watt that resistor is. So it shouldn't be smoking. Now, granted, that's from the 3.3 megs that I put in there. So unless this thing is not 3.3 megs anymore for some reason. But that's certainly a trouble. So we got 3 trouble spots in this thing I got to figure out. So we got a horizontal sink issue, which I just dry checked all the resistors in here. They're all fine. So unless one of these mica mold domino caps are bad, which is entirely possible, one of those could be bad. I don't have a high voltage capacitor checker to know if they're leaky or not. I'd have to shotgun them. It's the only way I can do that. So there's that. We have that issue there. Then we have the second issue, which is the audio stage and drawing too much current, causing that resistor to get hot and smoke. Now we have a tertiary issue, which is the vertical output oscillator. That's the 3.3 meg ohm resistor there. So it's going to this 12SN7. So there's definitely a problem. I got to find out why that's happening, because this shit was burned open when I first started working on this thing. So there's a problem somewhere. This could be shorted and dragging things down. This could, I don't know. It's weird. It's definitely a weird one. Alright, I made a mistake. So that is the 2 point or 3.3. I didn't have a 3.3, so I put a 2.2 in there. That's the vertical here. So the vertical is not my issue, because I saw where I had to replace the cap, but that's not. That's this resistor right here. So that's fine. What I was looking at over here, which is connected to pin 5 of the 6SN7, and that is in the horizontal oscillator stage. So if we take a look, I checked the voltage. I have like 30 something volts here, right? I have 30 something volts here coming off this resistor. I'm supposed to have 175. So if we look, this is the horizontal control, which is the sync, because here's the phase detector, and then this. So if that circuit's not working, we're not going to have horizontal sync. So now that makes sense. So I got my mistake corrected. So apparently that is a 120K resistor. So 120K at 330 volts across that 120K. Well, let's see. Let's just do the math real quick. So 330 volts over 120K. And then we're gonna 330 volts. Yeah. 907.5 milliwatts, almost a watt across the half watt resistor. No. That's not right. So we've definitely got a problem. Now, what could be dropping that voltage way down there? So we need to start checking. So the cathode's connected to ground directly. So that means we need to make sure we have the negative 7 volts here, because if this tube is driven hard over, it'll do that. So in this tube, the 6SN7 is, I think this is an original tube, but I'm not sure. It may not be. I have to double check again. I don't remember. I have to look past. But yeah, so we have all this shit here. So we're going to check all of that and see where this voltage is specifically, because if this voltage is too far in the positive, you're going to be turning this tube hard on, so it's not going to be effective, which it's not effective right now, as we can tell, and we're going to consume too much current through the plate load resistor, which is what that is. So that is the plate load resistor for the 6SN7, and it's burning up because we have a problem in that circuit. So let's figure it out. I did some more measurements. I have about negative 8.8 volts here. So this tube should be more into cutoff than it is. And I have about 30 volts here. So that tube is problematic. So we got to find out why that is. So how is that tube actually biased? Because here's the problem. There's no blocking cap here, blocking cap there. This tube can't get any bias. So the bias must be the AC signal driven into the tube from the previous stage, which we get. So, okay, that makes sense. Now that cap has been replaced. That cap's been replaced, which is these two here, because there's the 0.47 and there's the point. So those two have been replaced. So it's not that. And we have this 470 picofarad, which comes off the plate load, which is going to, where are you going? Which is going here. It's this domino cap. So better check that. So it gets even more interesting. I went ahead because I got 30 volts here, but there's supposed to be negative 20 here, and I'm getting like 1 volt here positive. So I'm thinking, okay, well, let me pull the tube. So I decided to pull the tube, and it is not an original tube. It's been replaced, and you can see how much it's been used. So I pulled the tube, and I checked it again, and there's still only 30 volts here, and this resistor gets cooking hot. So we have a short right here. So this resistor, R68, is burning up, coming from a 350 volt source, and I'm only getting 30 volts on the other side. So I wonder if this mica mold C60 is shorted, Because if it is, it would come out and go through this coil right to ground. Which, that's the coil I adjusted. Because remember, I had to back this thing out pretty far. So, I'm starting to suspect that mica mold is shorted. So, yeah, let's investigate that. So yeah, I'm looking at this lug, and there's only two connections on that lug right there. There's the resistor itself, which I'm not counting, and then we have the red wire, which goes to pin 5 of the 6SN7, which is the plate, and then we have the mica mold right there above it. So that's it. There's nothing else left on that lug. So unless there's a short from... I'm not measuring anything across the mica mold with my ohm meter, or well, the bench top right there. I'm not getting anything across it, but that's at a very low voltage, not high voltage. So, yeah, this is a weird one. Let me figure this. This one's gonna be fun. All right, so, I pulled this mica mold capacitor out of here. It's a solar brand, and sure enough, the voltage returned on my pin. So this cap would have to be bad. Now if I measure it with my multimeter, I get 2 megohms one way and I get 8 megohms the other way. It's weird. So there's it's got to be this cap. Now I'm trying to figure out the color code, because according to this, it's green, black, black, which is with this chart here. If I follow this chart here, it's a 50 picofarad. But the schematic calls for 470 picofarad. Now, if this would have been a brown, which I can't really tell, it might be burnt, but if that was brown, it'd be a 500 picofarad, which would make more sense. So 470 picofarad, I don't know if I have one of those on hand. I'd have to get a .001. I'd have to get a 1 nanofarad, like a 102 cap, and put them in series to get me a half of that. I gotta see what I have on hand, because I don't think I have that one. So, but I've been looking around online and doing some research. Some of these can be actually plastic molded paper too, but I don't know. I'm going to assume this cap failed a long time ago, because this was already open when I got the unit. So this cap could have failed a long time ago. But it's definitely bad, so I want to pull it and replace it with another one. So I have the old capacitor out, and it does read 2 megs one way and about 7 to 8 megs the other way. So it's definitely going into the junk pile. Now, I got a new one installed. Unfortunately, I don't have those, so I had to just kind of make something again. So I took 2,000 picofarad or 1 nanofarads and put them in series, so that gets me roughly 500 picofarads. So we should be good there. I left the old resistor in it for now that got hot, but it still measures within spec, surprisingly. So now at this point, I want to go ahead and do a voltage measurement and see to make sure we are still within spec. I don't have the tube installed yet, so let's just check the voltage at this point. There we go. Much better. Oh, damn. That's high. No wonder they wanted 500 volt caps. That makes sense. With all the proper filtering now. There we go. Okay. Good. So now we can install the tube. And I'm hoping... I gotta figure out how it's gonna go in. It can only fit in there one way. I'm doing this blindfoldedly here. Alright, let's see here. I'm pretty sure it's... There we go. Okay. Now, let's try this again. I'm probably going to have to readjust the horizontal output, or this frequency control, to get it in line. I need to turn you back on. Alright. This should start falling pretty rapidly. It does. Almost too rapidly. There we go. Okay, so now we need to readjust U again. Alright. Somehow. Am I going the right way with it? Hold on, stand by. I need both hands. It keeps slipping off. And that, the coil is back down to where it was originally. So now, yeah, that, well, it's locking at least. Not perfect. Pot's a shot completely. I can just wiggle it. But it's locked. Much better than where we were. Holy crap. Alright. I can live with that. Just gotta spray some pots out here. But yeah, I can live with that. Alright, so let's move on to the next thing, which is the audio circuit. Alright. I replaced the 6AL5 with the other one that I had. I pulled the original out that was weak. So we'll give this thing a try again and see what it does. It should just pull right in. That thing goes nuts. Once it warms up, boom, snaps right in. Now when I play with this hold control, it doesn't really lose lock because it's not supposed to. Alright. Now we just got to figure out the audio tube situation, which I put the tube back in and yeah, it gets hot. So I think this is biased too hot for some reason. It's either that or this is supposed to be a higher spec resistor than what they gave in the service manual. Now, I have a hard time believing that Zenith would do that in 1950, but who knows. But I'm thinking more along the lines of this being biased too hot because, well, the manual here, if I'm looking at it, shows about 3 volts right there, even though you can barely see it. And I get about 3.2 there on the cathode, so it should be correct, but it's not. Something's up there, so we got to figure that out. Unless it's oscillating and it's being driven extremely hard. So let me check with my meter in AC mode and make sure it's not actually oscillating, because if it's oscillating, it'll drive the tube way out there, so that'll do it too. Just in case anyone's curious, we'll test this cap right quick on resistance check. So this is one way across the cap, roughly about 10 megs. And if I flip-flop the leads and test the other way across the cap, yeah, see what I mean? So just goes to show you that these mica caps are definitely, this is acting more like a diode than a capacitor. I don't know, but it's shot. So that circuit seems to be functioning right. Now, I did put this on AC volts and put it on the plate of the 6EG7, and I am getting an AC signal there. With the volume turned all the way down, I get about a half a volt. Turn it all the way up, about 30 volts AC, or give or take. So there's something coming through. I don't know what, because I don't know if this thing actually generates a tone or not. It might. I don't know. I've never tried that, but it probably doesn't produce sound IF, so I'm just getting static through the tuner section. So, but anyways, yeah, I've got a signal there. I've got something coming through there. The tube is working. It is amplifying something. It's not in some crazy oscillation because it's adjustable by the volume control. So the fact that this thing is pulling so much current from here might be normal. This thing might need to be upgraded. Because here's the deal. According to the schematic service information, this is supposed to be 5 watt. This is supposed to be 5 watt. So you tell me, Do those look like 5 watt to you? That might look like 5 watt, but that looks more like a 10 watt or a 15 watt. So I wonder if they didn't update the service information. So I bet you that's got to go up. That's got to go up a size. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to upgrade that. Plus, this tube is slightly worn anyway, which means it's normally biased a little hot to begin with. So that's going to have to get replaced because the voltages are on point everywhere around here. So this tube is working as it should. So that means that is the wrong size. It's the only explanation I can come up with. So we'll probably get a 10 watt or a 15 watt. I think these are somewhere between 25 to 50 watt, and those things get hot quick too. So yeah, let's move on from that. I don't have that component on top of my parts supply right now, so I'm gonna have to order that because I had to order this originally. So I'm gonna have to order a 15 watt, 10 watt, 15 watt resistor. But in the meantime, I think what we can do is we can actually get the original CRT installed back on this thing and see how it performs. So let's do that. Alright, I got the CRT all installed. The ion trap's kind of like, I had to fiddle with that for a little bit. So let's get that up and see what we got. Seems to be working fairly good. Now, I am noticing the picture's not very bright. Now, if I turn it up, wait for this thing to lock, it's got weak tubes. So if I turn it up like this, it just blooms out really badly. So I'm wondering if I've got weak tubes because I have a lack of contrast, which I know I have weak tubes. I got to see which ones are responsible for the video circuit, but yeah, it's a little on the weak side. But other than that, it seems to be working fine. So you can kind of see the retrace period. See if the auto or the fine tune works fine. Yeah, so I mean it's working, but I'm barely getting a video signal through there. That's for sure. So I need to get a actual television signal in here so we can play around with this a little bit. Alright, so I've been tinkering with this for a little bit, and I have the original CRT working. Everything seems to be working fine. I still got to fix the audio stage, but I got to order parts for that. I also need to order some tubes because I don't have them all. I changed out all the 6AU6s to some that I just kind of randomly had in my junk stash and improved the picture a little bit. It's still not perfect. The horizontal sync will come and go because I think the rest of those mica mold caps are bad and they're going to need changed. There's also some scanline stragglers popping in and out, and I'm thinking that's the Macrovision that's being encoded by the Black Magic card because I'm transmitting this over the air because there's the antennas. So everything over here seems to be working fine. There's a little bit of blooming issues. I got to get a 1B3 because if I try to bring it, it just blooms way out. So I got to get a 1B3 in there. Also, I have contrast issues a little bit, but I think that has to do with not only IF alignment, but there's a bunch of weak tubes in the tuner and stuff too. There's a weak tube, a 6AB4 or 6BJ or whatever the hell it is. I put a 6C4 back in there, and that improved the sync a little bit, but there's still this 60 hertz hum bar that will run up the screen, and then when it gets up towards the top, it'll cause the picture to jump a little bit. But there's a lot of little things going on. But other than that, it seems to be working fine with the original CRT. And I got the ion trap magnet all lined up. Everything seems to be working. I did swap some of these 6SN7, 12SN7s around with some other ones. I changed out the 5U4 with a stronger one. Just substituting tubes, tinkering around. I got the video amplifier tube, which was a 12AT7, a 12AU7, was super weak, so I put a 12AX7 in there because that's all I had. So I got to order an AT, which is going to be fun because I'm going to be fighting the audiophile market, but I got to replace that. the AX does work, but I'm sure it's not right. That's in there. I found a 6AL5 in my stash, so I swapped that out. But yeah, everything seems to be working perfectly fine. So, and again, I don't have sound until I get that resistor swapped out. But yeah, I think not bad. It's really, really starting to come together. So I think, and then you could tell the horizontal is getting ready to, unlock. Because I noticed that too. The horizontal will just lose its shit again, and then the resistor will start smoking. But if I cut the power off and back on real quick, it'll relock. So I think it's probably the rest of those mica caps have to go bye-bye, because it acts like every once in a while it will act like it's got silver mica disease. It's weird. So yeah, that's why I think it's the rest of those mica caps. Someone order the tubes, and I think that's going to complete this project. We still got to figure out the channel. I got to fix the fine tuning, and I got to figure out the channel knob situation, because that's still screwed, and I'm not being able to find another one. So I will have to come up with a solution for that. I've got some ideas, and I might discuss that in the final video. We'll get to that, but I think this is a good stopping point to wrap up another installment. So in the next installment, when I get my tubes and parts and resistors and stuff like that in, we'll pick this up again. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. If you have a comment, please feel free to leave one, and don't forget to hit the like, the subscribe button, and all that stuff. And until next time, guys. Interesting observation. Now it's not going to do it. There it goes. See that? See that again? Wonder what's causing that.